Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Jonathan Cohn, and today I have a book review of the book Every Heart a Doorway, a novella, short novel by Seanan McGuire. This is a kind of fantasy type portal book. It is about 170 pages, so it's a little bit long for a traditional novella, but it's too short really to be considered a novel. So it's kind of in that middle range. But it is the first book in the Wayward Children series, and this book comes highly recommended by a lot of booktubers, a lot of book reviewers that I follow on Goodreads and Amazon and YouTube are all raving about this book and this series. And it is very unfortunate that I really disliked this book. And it's hard for me to talk about this when I really dislike a book on here, but I have to be honest in my reviews. And I picked up the book because of all the recommendations, and I had high hopes for it considering how much people loved it, but it just sadly did not deliver on what I needed to deliver on and what it promised. So the first thing I'll talk about is the promises of the book. This book is promised as kind of like a portal book series, and that while that is technically true, you don't actually step into any portals in this book. Instead, you're meeting characters from other portals. And so you feel, I mean, technically like at the very, very, very end of the book, the main character steps through a portal, but you don't see another world. You see characters who are from other worlds in our main character's world. And so that was a little bit disappointing. The other element of maybe future books will pay this off better, but this book didn't do that. The second thing with this book is that it kind of also has elements of maybe seeming like it'll be like a school book, because it's about like this kind of school for kids that kind of don't fit in and have issues from these various worlds. That's why they're called the Wayward Children. And while this made me think, oh, this is going to be like either those kids books about like those orphanages and schools for kids, I thought that'll be cute, or maybe it'll be kind of like Harry Potter. No, it's turned out to be much more R-rated, and so that was also a major problem with the book. And so the main issue that this book has is what I would call an identity crisis. It doesn't know what it wants to be. Is it an epic fantasy? Is it that kind of school-type book? Is it an R-rated book for teens and adults? Is it a murder mystery? It becomes about halfway through, it just shifts hard into murder mystery. And not just like a murder, but like a murder mystery with a horror bent. And it's really graphic in the way it describes things. And so it's really hard to describe what type of book this is, because it's kind of all over the place. Books can be in multiple genres and can do multiple types of things. You know, the Harry Potter books have elements of mystery to them. Some of my favorite epic fantasies have some touches of sci-fi in them. Sometimes they have touches of horror. So that can sometimes work in your book series. And even you can tell heavy themes even while still being available for all ages. The problem is this book tries to do way too much all at once. So here's the first thing that the book tries to do. It tries to be the portal world, to the portal type book without having any of the portals actually present. It tries to be that kind of epic fantasy magic system, but you only have 170 pages to describe the magic system, and since each world kind of has a bit of a different magic system to it, and you're learning about all of them without actually being there, it's really hard to remember them all. I remember the rules behind the world building, which I'll touch on when I talk about positives for the book, but I don't really remember the actual world building of each individual world. And that was a major problem. And if the author had started really small and had slowly built out with this series, the first book just is in the world that we're in, and also only includes like one character from outside this world, then you could slowly start to build the world building. But the problem is the author throws several elements of world building from several different worlds in this universe, like 4 or 5, all at once, and you have to kind of decipher them and keep track of them all. And when you only have 170 pages, it's super hard to get that all in. You have to be a very deft writer to make all of that work together. And unfortunately, it just didn't work for me here. Another part of this is that when it tries to be a murder mystery, it's a murder mystery with kids. And that's one thing that I referenced the Wednesday TV show. The Wednesday TV show did a great job of being a murder mystery with kids that is also kind of like edgy in its graphicness, but not too much. Like it stayed in that PG-13 range. The problem is this book goes hard R in that. And when you go hard R and you have teenagers, or sometimes even preteens, it's really difficult for me to buy in because I don't believe that you should be writing these kinds of situations with these age group of characters. When you add in that these characters are using hard R language with each other, I was reading the first 2 chapters and I'm like, oh, this is a sweet little book. And then I came across an F word and I was like, whoa, where did that come from? And then these characters are acting so much with vulgar terms and doing things to each other and talking about each other in ways that perhaps teenagers talk about themselves in these ways, but they should not be, and we should not be encouraging that in books. And one of the characters suggests the idea of, oh, are you going to sleep with this other guy there? And it's like, you realize you guys are teenagers. And then all of a sudden the character's like, okay, and says, I'm going to go do something very graphic to myself. And I was like, whoa, that's not appropriate. And so it was frustrating for me to read all of these things coming out of characters that should not be talking about them or doing them. So that was a big issue. When the book works, it is when it is describing the universe itself in this for these books. You have this type of dual world-building systems where you have the high logic and high nonsense, and then you have the high wicked and the high, is it virtue? High virtue. And so you see it's kind of like the political thing. Those political maps where it looks like this, and then it says, are you like conservative or liberal or libertarian or socialist, and it like puts you somewhere on the map, on that little map, and compares you. That's kind of like with world building. Is it like a logical and wicked place, or a logical and virtuous place, or a nonsense virtuous place, or a nonsense wicked place? And it describes how that worked. That I actually really liked in the book and was fascinated by, but it got drowned out too much by the negatives of the book. And most of the main characters didn't stick with me. I think like 2 of the main characters I like really remembered after reading the book, and they really kind of worked for me, and I was like, okay, these kind of work. But the rest, it's just, they were so vulgar, and they were so acting the way that they shouldn't. And this book, I think that when people see the descriptions of this book, they might even think this is middle grade or at least YA, but I don't think anyone that's not an adult should be reading this, like, even then. So just on every level, this book didn't work for me. And the mystery itself, I was kind of interested in, and it was okay in the way that it was like unraveled. Like the way that the author revealed the mystery at the end was fine. It wasn't stellar, but it wasn't bad the way that the author unveiled the mystery. But if it had been a much longer book and had been more focused on the mystery, maybe the author could have put more into it. And I wonder if it was more for the gimmick that they felt like this series had to stay in the novella length. But I feel like if the Tor.com, the publisher, and also the author, Seanan McGuire, if they had expanded the book to make them longer and put more into them and maybe focus them more, I think it would have worked better. But for me, this is it's the lowest rated book I've given this year, and it's the lowest rated book I've given in almost like 9 or 10 months. I'd give it a 2 out of 10. I liked the elements of the universal world building of the nonsense logic and wicked virtue stuff. That I found was interesting. Everything else I didn't like. I will say, so I'll give it like a 2 out of 10. I will say I would love to see someone with this series, specifically talking about the morality, do a compare and contrast between this book series, the way it's written and structured, and the way that C.S. Lewis structured the Narnia books. I think that would be a fascinating article. It's probably out there somewhere, but I'd like to see articles like that. So if you've read Every Heart a Doorway, I'm sorry I spent this whole time yucking on your yum. Let me know about it. If you liked it, let me know about it. If you also disliked it, let me know about it. But until next time, I'm Jonathan, and thank you for watching.